There's a man I think about more than I'd like to admit. He retired at 59. One income his whole life. A single paycheck that by today's standards wouldn't cover a decent health insurance premium. He never owned a single share of stock. He never sat across from a financial advisor. He never read a book about money. And he walked away from work 11 years early, owing nothing to anyone, with the deed to his house sitting in a kitchen drawer. Now here's the part that should bother you. You almost certainly earn more than he did. Adjusted for everything, inflation, productivity, the works, you out-earn him by a wide margin. You have access to tools he never dreamed of. Index funds, tax-advantaged accounts, an entire financial industry built to serve you. And yet, if you're like most people watching this, you feel further from done than he ever did. You're not behind because you don't make enough. You're behind because something was quietly taken from you and you were told it was an upgrade. He didn't have more money than you. He had something the modern world spent 50 years training you to give up. Not a budget app, not a hack, a way of seeing money that made waste impossible to ignore, and that one shift did more for his net worth than any product ever sold to an American consumer. Here's the uncomfortable truth, and I'll say it plainly because you're an adult and I respect that. You don't need more money. You need a better plan. And the plan you're missing isn't complicated. It's just unfashionable. Let me show you the blueprint. Let's start with the thing nobody tells you, because it sounds too simple to matter. The lineman in Dayton wasn't running a system. He was running one idea, and everything else arranged itself around it. He spent less than he earned. That's it. That's the whole foundation. I know how that lands. You've heard it 1,000 times on 1,000 posters, in 1,000 cheerful videos. Spend less than you earn. It's become background noise, the financial equivalent of eat your vegetables. And because it sounds obvious, you've stopped actually looking at it. This is where most people get it wrong. They treat that sentence as advice. It isn't advice. It's a structure. And the difference between advice and structure is the difference between a family that owns its life and a family that makes monthly payments on the illusion of one. Here's what I mean. Think of money the way a builder thinks about lumber. Not as something to enjoy or display, but as material. Every paycheck that came through that man's door was a stack of bricks, and he had already decided, before the money arrived, exactly which wall each brick was going into. The mortgage, the tax fund, the repair money, the savings. By the time the paycheck cleared, it had already been spent on paper, deliberately, in advance. What was left over wasn't fun money. It was surplus, and surplus had exactly one job: to become equity. Now contrast that with how money moves through your life right now. Be honest with yourself for a second. The paycheck lands, the big obligations come out, rent or mortgage, the car, insurance, and then the rest just drains. A little here, a subscription you forgot about there, a dinner that turned into a night, 3 taps on a phone. None of it feels like a decision. That's the entire problem. It doesn't feel like anything at all. The money doesn't leave in one dramatic moment you'd notice and regret. It evaporates in fragments too small to register until the month is over and you genuinely cannot say where it went. That family in 1963 had a structural advantage you've lost, and it had nothing to do with willpower. They couldn't lose track of money because money was physical. It was paper in a hand, bills in an envelope, a ledger on a yellow legal pad. When that man bought something, he watched the bills leave his fingers. The cost was visible. It completed itself in front of him. You cannot say the same. Your money is a number on a screen that changes when you're not looking. A tap, a saved card, a buy now that takes less attention than crossing a street. This is the quiet thing that was taken from you, and it wasn't a conspiracy, it was just business. Friction was removed from spending. Every step that used to make you pause was sanded down, because a pause is a moment you might decide not to buy. The result is an economy engineered so that money leaves your possession with as little awareness as humanly possible. You were not made reckless. You were made frictionless. And frictionless money behaves like water on a flat roof. It finds every crack. So let me reframe the old rule, because spend less than you earn isn't the lesson. The lesson is this: the gap between what comes in and what goes out is the only thing that ever becomes wealth. And that gap only survives if you can see it. The lineman didn't have more discipline coded into his bones than you do. He had a system that made the cost of every choice impossible to ignore. The visibility did the work. The discipline was just what was left over once seeing clearly became automatic. And here's the honest part, the part the nostalgic version of this story always skips. His world was genuinely different from yours, and not always in his favor to copy. A house cost a fraction of what it costs you relative to income. Healthcare didn't threaten to erase a lifetime of saving in a single hospital stay. College wasn't a mortgage of its own, so I'm not going to insult you by saying, just live like 1963 and you'll be fine. You can do everything right and still face costs that man never imagined. That's real. That's the trade-off, and I won't pretend it away. But here's why the habits matter more for you, not less. When the environment is harder, when the margins are thinner and the costs are steeper, visibility stops being a nice to have and becomes the whole game. A leak in a small bucket is an inconvenience. A leak in a bucket you're already struggling to fill is the difference between making it and not. You don't have the luxury of frictionless money. The stakes are simply too high. If you fix this, if you make your money visible again, on purpose, in a world designed to keep it invisible, everything downstream changes. Every other thing I'm going to show you is just a channel carrying that one principle somewhere useful. So before we build anything, sit with the foundation. You are not bad with money. You've been handed a system designed to make it disappear quietly. Naming that is the first brick. Let me give you the first real tool, and I want you to notice how unglamorous it is. It's a written plan for money you haven't spent yet. That's all a budget ever was. Not tracking, not regret, not opening an app at the end of the month to find out what already happened. A budget made in advance, where every dollar gets an assignment before it arrives. That man in Dayton, and the families like his, did something on Sunday nights that almost no one does today. They sat down with a pencil and decided where the next paycheck was going. All of it, before a single dollar of it moved. Rent, food, the tax fund, the mortgage principal, savings. The columns had to balance. Not approximately, exactly. If the numbers didn't agree, they found the mistake before Monday. They didn't move until they found it. Now here's the distinction that matters, and this is where most people get it wrong. What you probably call budgeting is actually accounting. You spend the month and then you look back and add it up. That's an autopsy. You're examining a body to find out what killed it. A real budget is the opposite. It happens before. It's the difference between deciding where your car goes and reading the police report after the crash. Why does the timing change everything? Because a dollar that hasn't been assigned a job will find one on its own. And the job it finds is almost never the one you'd have chosen. Unassigned money drifts toward whatever asks for it most loudly in the moment. The notification, the sale, the "you've earned it." When you assign every dollar in advance, you're not restricting yourself. You're just making the decision while you're calm and thinking clearly, instead of at 9 p.m. on a phone, tired, with a card already saved. Here's the honest arithmetic of why this compounds. Suppose you make your money visible and it surfaces just $300 a month that used to evaporate. A couple of subscriptions, some impulse spending, a few meals that didn't need to happen. That's $3,600 a year. Modest. Now, suppose that money goes to work instead of vanishing. At a reasonable long-term return, $300 a month invested consistently becomes roughly $50,000 in 10 years and well over $200,000 in 25. Same income, same job, same paycheck you already earn. The only thing that changed is that the leak got named and redirected. You don't need a raise to find that money. You need a plan that catches it before it's gone. But I want to be honest about why this is hard, because the cheerful versions never are. The reason almost nobody keeps a written budget isn't laziness, and it isn't stupidity. It's that a real budget forces you to see trade-offs you'd rather not look at. When every dollar has a job, you can no longer pretend you can have everything. The vacation and the new car and the dining out and the aggressive saving, the budget makes you choose, in writing, in advance. And choosing means admitting you can't do it all. That's uncomfortable. It's far more pleasant to leave the money fuzzy and tell yourself it'll work out. The fuzziness is the cost. You pay for that comfort with your future. The 1960s family didn't have a special gene for this. They had a culture that treated the written ledger as normal, the way you treat brushing your teeth. And they had a tool, physical cash, and a paper book that made the whole thing concrete. You have to build on purpose what they got from their environment for free. That's the trade-off of your era. More tools, less friction, and therefore more responsibility to create the structure yourself. Nobody is going to hand it to you. The bank certainly won't. A vague customer is a profitable customer. So here's what this looks like for you, translated out of 1963 and into your actual life. You don't need a yellow legal pad, though I won't stop you. Once a month, before payday, not after, you write down every dollar coming in and give each one a destination. Fixed costs first. Then the things that are predictable but irregular, which I'll get to next block, because that's the category that quietly destroys more plans than any other. Then your saving and your debt pay down, treated not as leftovers but as bills you owe to your own future. Whatever genuinely remains after that is yours to spend without guilt, because you decided it on purpose. That last part matters. This isn't about deprivation, and I won't sell it to you as a life of saying no to everything. The lineman wasn't a miser, he was precise. There's a profound difference between a person who fears spending and a person who simply knows exactly what each dollar costs, not in money, but in time. Every dollar handed to a creditor was a day that creditor owned. Every dollar kept was a day that belonged to him. Get this one piece right. The plan made in advance, every dollar with a job, and you've rebuilt the single most powerful financial structure your grandparents had. If you fix this, everything changes, because every other tool I'm about to show you runs on top of it. Now I want to talk about the category of spending that quietly wrecks more financial plans than impulse buying, dining out, and bad investments combined. It isn't the big stuff. You see the big stuff coming. It's the predictable expense you somehow treat as a surprise every single time it arrives. Think about it. The car insurance that's due in full every 6 months. Property taxes. The holidays in December, which, and I say this gently, happen in December every year, and have never once moved. The new tires you knew were coming, the roof, the water heater that lasts about a decade and then doesn't, the dental bill. None of these are emergencies. An emergency is something you couldn't have known about. These are appointments you refuse to put on the calendar. And yet, when each one lands, it lands like a crisis. And a crisis is exactly when people reach for debt. This is where most people get it wrong, and it's such a clean trap that I want you to see the full mechanism. You build a budget that works beautifully for the ordinary month. Rent, food, gas, the usual. It balances. You feel in control. And then November comes, or the insurance bill comes, or the transmission goes, and there's no room in that tidy monthly budget for a $1,400 hit. So it goes on a card. Now you're carrying a balance at 20-something%, and you're paying interest on a bill you saw coming from a mile away. You didn't fail to afford it. You failed to schedule it. The family in Dayton solved this with something almost laughably simple. Envelopes and labeled accounts. A few dollars every single week into one marked for taxes, so that when the tax bill arrived, it wasn't an event. It was just a withdrawal from money that was already sitting there waiting. Another envelope filled all year so that December was paid for in cash, and not $1 of holiday debt followed the family into January. They didn't have more money for these things than you do. They just refused to be ambushed by the predictable. Here's the principle underneath it, and it's the whole game. Take every expense you know is coming in the next 12 months, even the irregular ones, and divide it into the weeks or months between now and then. Then set that amount aside before you can spend it on anything else. You're not saving in some vague, hopeful way. You're prepaying bills that haven't arrived yet. The $1,400 insurance bill becomes roughly $117 a month you quietly tuck away. When the bill comes, you don't feel it at all because you already paid it. 12 calm pieces instead of one painful lump. Let me make the cost of skipping this concrete because the honest arithmetic is brutal. Say you cover 3 of these predictable hits a year on a credit card, call it $4,000 total, and you carry that balance over months at 24% interest. You're handing the lender several $100s a year in interest for the privilege of being surprised by things that weren't surprises. Do that for a working lifetime and you've shipped tens of thousands of dollars out the door, not on the things themselves, but on the penalty for not scheduling them. That money bought you nothing. It bought the bank a yacht slip. And notice what the modern system did here, not out of malice, but out of incentive. When enough people stopped setting money aside for predictable bills, an entire apparatus grew up to help. The lender bundles your property taxes into an escrow account and pays them for you, a service that exists precisely because the old habit of self-funding died. The card is always there for the December you didn't plan for. The buy now, pay later button waits at every checkout. Every one of these is a paid solution to a problem you could solve for free if you simply rebuilt the envelope. Convenience is never free. You just pay for it later, with interest, in a way you don't feel at the moment of relief. So here's the translation into your life. Sit down once and list every non-monthly expense you can predict for the next year. Insurance, taxes, holidays, annual subscriptions, expected repairs and replacements on things you already own. Add it up, divide by 12. That number is a real monthly bill, as real as rent, and it goes into your plan from last block as a line item you fund first into a separate account you don't touch. A boring savings account is fine. The point isn't return. The point is that the money exists before the bill does. I'll be honest about the discipline this takes, because pretending it's effortless would disrespect you. The hard part isn't the math. The hard part is funding a bill that isn't screaming at you yet, while a dozen things that are screaming compete for the same dollars. Paying a future you can't see, ahead of a present you can feel, runs against every instinct. But that exact act, releasing the first dollars toward an obligation before it can be rationalized into something else, is the muscle that makes everything else work. You don't need more money to stop being ambushed. You need a better plan, one that treats the predictable as scheduled, not as fate. Build the envelope back, and the crises that send most people into debt simply stop being crises. They become withdrawals, and a life made of withdrawals instead of emergencies is a quieter, freer life than almost anyone you know is living. Now we get to the heart of it. Everything so far, the visible money, the plan in advance, the funded envelope, was clearing the ground. This block is the foundation that goes underneath the whole house. And it starts with a single sentence that built more middle-class wealth than every financial product ever sold to an American consumer, and that the modern world spent 50 years teaching you to find quaint. Oh no, man. That's it. 5 words. Not manage your debt responsibly, not use credit strategically, not leverage as a tool, just owe no one. If it couldn't be bought with money you actually had, it wasn't bought. And I want to be careful and honest here because the modern objection to this is real, and I'm not going to dodge it. Some debt genuinely builds. A mortgage on a home you'll live in for decades is the clearest example because at the end of it, you own something that holds value. The old families understood this exactly. They borrowed for the house because the house was the point. They did not borrow for anything that lost value on the drive home. That's the whole distinction. And it's cleaner than the sophisticated version you've been sold. Borrow only for things that build equity. Everything else, you wait and pay in full. This is where most people get it wrong, and the error didn't come from nowhere. Somewhere in the last few decades, a quiet substitution happened in the language itself. Debt got renamed. A loan became financing. A balance became a monthly payment. A line of credit became flexibility. And the most dangerous rename of all, debt became access. None of these words are neutral. Each one was chosen to take a thing that used to feel like failure and make it feel like sophistication, even progress. The moment a payment stopped feeling like debt and started feeling like access, the wall came down. And we've been living on the other side of it ever since. Let me show you the arithmetic the comfortable language is designed to hide, because numbers don't rename themselves. Take a $30,000 car, an ordinary car now, not a luxury one. Financed over 6 years at 9%, you'll pay close to $7,000 in interest, so the car costs $37,000. And it's worth maybe half that by the time you finished paying. You bought a depreciating object and rented the money to do it. Now run a credit card balance, $8,000 carried at 24%, paying only the minimum. You will pay more in interest than the original balance, and it will take you over a decade to clear it, for things you almost certainly can't even remember buying. That's the real shape of access. It's not a tool. It's a meter running in a direction that is never your favor. Here's the part that should reframe how you see every payment you make. Interest is not a fee. It's a claim on your time. When you owe money, some portion of every future hour you work is already promised to someone else before you earn it. You think you're working for yourself, but a slice of your week belongs to the lender automatically before you see a dollar of it. That's what the old families understood in their bones, and it's why the rule was moral, not just financial. Every dollar owed to a creditor was a day the creditor owned. every dollar free and clear was a day that belonged to the family. They weren't avoiding debt because they feared spending. They avoided it because they understood precisely what it cost, not in dollars, but in days of their one life. And I'll acknowledge the trade-off honestly, because the nostalgic version never does. Living debt-free outside of a home is harder now than it was then. Cars cost more relative to income. An emergency room visit can erase a year of careful saving. There are seasons, a job loss, a medical crisis, where debt isn't a moral failure, it's survival. And I won't moralize at someone keeping the lights on. So this isn't a rule to wield as shame. It's a direction to point your life. The goal isn't to never borrow under any circumstance. The goal is to claw your way deliberately toward a life where no institution on earth has a standing claim on your next paycheck. Because here's what's actually on the other side of that wall. And it's not just money, it's the thing the lineman had that you almost certainly don't. The ability to walk away from a bad job, from a bad boss, from a bad year. When you owe no one, a layoff is a setback. When you're leveraged to the ceiling, the same layoff is a catastrophe because the payments don't pause just because your income did. That gap between setback and catastrophe is the only definition of wealth that has ever mattered to anyone who actually needed it. Not the size of the portfolio, the freedom to say no. So when you hear the voice, and you will constantly, telling you that leverage is smart, that a payment isn't debt, that everyone carries a balance, that this is just how it works now, I want you to remember something. That voice is not neutral. That voice has a direct financial interest in the answer it gives you. It profits when you owe. The lineman had no use for that voice. He had a ledger and a paycheck and 40 years of knowing exactly what each one meant. If you fix this one thing, if you stop renting the wall and start owning it again, everything changes. Not because you'll be rich, because you'll be free. So far, we've talked about seeing your money, planning it, scheduling the predictable, and refusing the trap of debt. Now, I want to give you the piece that makes all of it actually happen, because you can understand every principle so far and still fail for one reason. Order. The sequence in which money leaves your hands decides everything, and almost everyone has it backwards. Here's the backwards version, the one you're probably living. The paycheck arrives, you pay the bills, you spend on the week, and then, if anything is left, you save. Saving is the last thing in line. It gets whatever survives. And this is where most people get it wrong, because here's the iron law of money that no one says out loud. Whatever you put last gets nothing. What remains at the end of the month is always less than you expected. Always. Not because you're undisciplined, but because life expands to consume whatever it's given. If saving waits for leftovers, saving will starve. There are never leftovers. There is only what you protected first and what you didn't. The 1960s family inverted this completely, and it was the single most important mechanical decision they made. The mortgage check was written first. Before groceries, before anything, the savings came out first. The tax envelope was funded first. The giving, for the religious families, the tithe, came off the top before any other dollar could be rationalized into something else. And that habit, that act of releasing the first and most important dollars before the rest of life could lay claim to them, was the engine. Everything else got managed on what was left. The order was the entire rule. Pay first means pay from certainty. Pay last means pay from whatever happens to remain. And what remains is contingent, fragile, and usually gone. Let me make this concrete because the difference between these two sequences is the difference between two completely different lives lived on the exact same income. Imagine two households, each bringing home $5,000 a month. The first family pays everything, lives the month, and saves what's left. Some months that's $200, some months it's zero. Over a year, maybe they save $1,500, and they feel like they tried hard to get there. The second family takes $600 off the top the day the money lands, moved out, gone, invisible, and then lives on the $4,400 that remains. They don't feel deprived because they never see the $600. They simply build their life around the smaller number. Same income. One family saves $1,500 a year by accident. The other saves $7,200 a year on purpose. Run that gap across 25 years with compounding. And the second family ends up with several $100,000 more. Not because they earned $1 more, but because they changed the order. And here's the beautiful part. The part that makes this sustainable when willpower fails. You have a tool the lineman never had, and it solves the hardest problem in personal finance. He had to physically resist the temptation every single payday. To fill the envelope before spending it took real, repeated effort of will. You can automate the entire thing. You can set it so the money moves to savings, to investment, to debt principal the very day your paycheck lands, before your eyes ever see it, before your hands can reach it. The transfer happens while you sleep. You wake up to the smaller number and you live on that. The discipline only has to be exercised once when you set it up. After that, the system holds the line for you every single payday, forever. This is the rare case where the modern world hands you something genuinely better than what your grandparents had. They had to be disciplined. You can be structured and let the structure carry the discipline. I'll be honest about the trade-off because automating pay yourself first only works if the number is real. Set it too high, in a burst of enthusiasm, and you'll drain the account. Reach for a card to cover the gap and pay interest on your own savings, which is worse than not saving at all. So the honest version is this. Start with a number you're certain you can live beneath, even in a tight month. Maybe that's 5%, maybe it's $200. Make it automatic. Live beneath it for 90 days and prove to yourself the sky doesn't fall. Then raise it. And here's the move that quietly builds fortunes. Every time your income goes up, a raise, a bonus, a side income, send the increase to the top of that stack before you ever adjust your standard of living upward. The lineman standard of living in 1969 looked almost identical to 1961. His net worth did not. He never let his lifestyle absorb his raises. The surplus had one job, and it wasn't comfort, it was equity. That's the whole secret of order. Not earning more, not budgeting harder, just deciding in advance and on autopilot that the most important dollars leave first, toward your future, toward freedom, toward the wall you actually own, and that everything else arranges itself around what's left. You don't need more money to do this. You need a better plan, and the plan is simply this: reverse the order, automate it, and never look back. If you fix this one thing, everything downstream changes. There's one more structure, and it's the one the whole 1960s story was secretly about. Not the budget, not the envelopes, the paid-off house. To that generation, the deed in the drawer wasn't just an asset. It was the finish line, the proof that the wall was finally built, that no institution had a claim on the roof over their children. The single extra mortgage payment a year, the weekend work that went straight to principal, the vacation that stayed home so the money could go to the loan. All of it pointed at one target: own the house outright as fast as possible and be done. Let me show you why this mattered so much with honest arithmetic. One extra principal payment a year on a 30-year mortgage can cut roughly 4 to 6 years off the loan and save you tens of thousands in interest, because $1 applied to principal early erases all the future interest that dollar would have carried. That's not a trick. That's just how amortization works, and the early dollars are worth many times the late ones. The old families understood this without spreadsheets. They felt it. Before I give you the final piece, and it's the piece that ties all 6 together, I want to ask you for something, because if any of this has been useful, this is the moment it costs you nothing to act. Subscribe to this channel. That's it. I'm not going to dress it up. This series exists to tell you the things the financial industry has a direct interest in keeping fuzzy. And the only way these videos reach the people who need them is if the people who find them useful stay. So if you've heard one honest thing today, subscribe and let the next one find you. Thank you, genuinely. Now, here's the honest complication, and I won't pretend it away. Paying off your house aggressively is not automatically the right move for you the way it was for the lineman. His world had no tax-advantaged retirement accounts, no broad index funds, and mortgage rates that often sat near what markets historically return. Your world is different. If you hold a low, fixed-rate mortgage and you have no retirement savings, the math may favor investing first and matching every employer dollar before you send extra to principal. Liquidity matters too. A paid-off house you can't eat in an emergency is worth less than the same money you can reach. So I'm not going to hand you a slogan. The honest answer is, it depends on your rate, your taxes, your other savings, and what helps you sleep. I'm not your advisor, and this isn't advice for your specific situation. But I'll tell you the principle underneath, because the principle never changed. And that principle is the final piece of the blueprint. The thing all 6 structures were really building toward. It isn't a paid-off house. The house was just one form of it. It's this: the goal of money is not more money. The goal is to buy back your time. Every structure I've shown you does the same single thing from a different angle. The visible money, the plan in advance, the funded envelope, the refusal of debt, the pay yourself first order, the equity you build. Every one of them is a channel carrying the same water somewhere useful, and the destination is always the same: a life where you owe no one, where a bad year is a setback instead of a catastrophe, where you can walk away from a job that's killing you because nothing has a standing claim on your next paycheck. The lineman didn't retire at 59 because he was rich. He retired because he was free, and freedom turned out to be cheaper than the lifestyle most people finance instead. That's the whole framework. 6 structures, one purpose: convert income into time you own. Most people spend their whole lives doing the opposite, converting time into income, and then income into things, and then signing up to owe for the next batch of things, which requires more time, which is the trap closing quietly around them. You break the cycle by deciding, on purpose, that surplus buys freedom instead of stuff. In the next video in this series, I'm going to take this apart at the most dangerous point in the whole journey. The years right before you stop working, when one wrong move can undo decades of discipline, and where the financial industry makes more money off your fear than at any other moment of your life. Because building the wall is one thing. Knowing how to stand behind it for 30 years without it crumbling is another entirely. But that's next time. For now, sit with the simple version. You don't need more money. You need a better plan. And the plan was never complicated. It was just unfashionable because no one profits from selling it to you. There's a scene I want you to carry with you after this video ends. It's an ordinary Tuesday morning. A man sits at a kitchen table with a cup of coffee. He's 59 years old. In front of him is a single index card he's kept in a cabinet for years, and on it, in pencil, is one line he's updated every January. This morning, he picks up the pencil, and instead of writing a new number, he writes one word across the whole card: done. Then he opens the drawer, sets the card next to the deed to his house, and closes it. No fireworks, no announcement. Just a man, on a normal morning, who has quietly run out of people to owe. He pours the rest of his coffee and looks out the window at a day that belongs entirely to him. He has a lot of those days left. He's about to spend 11 years worth of them however he wants, because nobody on earth has a claim on a single one. I want you to hold that image, because now I'm going to show you two futures, and you're standing at the fork between them right now. In the first future, nothing changes. The money stays invisible, a number on a screen that drains in fragments too small to notice. You keep paying for the predictable as if it were a surprise. You carry a balance because everyone does. You save whatever happens to be left, which is to say, not much. And it's not a disaster. That's the cruel part. It's comfortable. The cards work. The car is new. From the outside, it looks like a life that's doing fine, but you never get a Tuesday like his. You work because you have to, right up until you can't, and then you work a little longer because the math never quite closed. You spend the second half of your life the way you spent the first, one payment ahead of the bill, one paycheck away from a problem, never quite free, not poor, just never done. In the second future, you change the order. Not dramatically. You make your money visible. You write the plan before the month instead of after. You fund the predictable so it stops ambushing you. You stop renting the wall and start owning it, one deliberate dollar at a time. None of it is heroic. Most of it is boring. And 5 years in, 10 years in, something has quietly shifted that you can feel in your chest before you can see it on paper. The bad year arrives, and it's a setback, not a catastrophe. The job goes bad, and you can walk away. You start slowly to own your own days. That's the future the lineman built, brick by ordinary brick, on a paycheck smaller than yours. The distance between those two futures is not income. It's not luck. It's not a better job or a hot stock or a windfall you're waiting for. It's a set of structures so plain that the modern world convinced you they were too simple to matter, and then sold you complicated things to fill the space where they used to be. So, before you close this, I'm going to ask you for 3 things. First, subscribe. If you haven't yet, do it now, so the next video in this series finds you when you need it. Second, share this with 5 people, not 50. 5 people you actually care about who are living one payment ahead of the bill and don't know there's another way. This is the kind of thing that only travels person to person, because no one with a budget to advertise is going to hand it to them. Third, leave a comment. Tell me which of these structures you're going to build first. The visible money, the plan, the envelope, the order. Writing it down makes it real. And I read them. And then close the laptop and go build something. Because here is the truth, in the fewest words I have. You were never behind. You were just never shown the blueprint. Now you have it. Go own your days.